Welcome to the field here in Eastern Arkansas. My name is Matt Fryer. I'm a soils instructor with the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. And so we'd like to welcome you to our second virtual field trip in the Soil and Water Conservation series. And today we're going to highlight Steve Stevens. He's an Arkansas Discovery farmer. And to talk more about his farm and what they've got going on, I'd like to turn it over to Mike Daniels. Dr. Mike Daniels is a nutrient management researcher for the University of Arkansas System Division of Ag, and he's going to tell us more about the program and the working parts. So, Mike.
Thank you, Matt. We're very excited about to bring this program to you live today from the field. It's going to be hot, so you're probably glad you're in your office watching it today. But this is typical of situations that our farmers and farm workers have to deal with every day. So we're glad to be out here in the heat today to talk about this program. Very first thing I want to do is this program would not be possible without some of our financial partners and sponsors. And you should see on your screen the logos of a lot of different sources. Now, Dr. Mark Cochran is going to be on the program, our Vice President of Agriculture for the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. But he's going to talk a little bit more about the role that our funding partners and our sponsors play in this. We also are going to hear from our partners that help deliver the program. We're going to hear from Mike Sullivan, the state conservationist from USDA NRCS. We're going to hear from Debbie Moreland of the Arkansas Association of Conservation Districts. And if time allows, we're going to hear from Andrew Wargo, the board chairman of the Deshay County Conservation District. And most of all, you're going to hear from Steve Stevens, our farmer. We're also going to hear today from the co-leader of the Arkansas Discovery Farmer. I have the pleasure of serving as the co-leader with Dr. Andrew Sharpley, and he's going to talk a little bit about why we need this and what problems and issues that we're trying to address with Discovery Farms. Now, I've been talking about Discovery Farms, but what is a Discovery Farm? Discovery Farm is a program that we adopted that we saw firsthand in Wisconsin, and Dr. Cochran's going to talk a little bit more about that. But it is a program designed for us to work with farmers on their farm. These are farmers that have volunteered, and I commend these farmers. They've stepped out on a limb, and they let us collect sensitive environmental information about water use, water quality, and those type of things. So anything related to water and how we're using that in agriculture, we monitor that for agriculture. We're doing that for the reasons of collecting baseline information. We have very little information available at what is leaving our fields at the edge of the field. Now, farmers sometimes feel like they have fingers pointed at them by regulators and others, but we really don't have any data making that link from the farm to the stream. And Discovery Farms is trying to help farmers to be proactive to address this. And farmers really are great stewards of their land, and they want to make sure that they remain, it's important to them. That's how they make their livelihood. So we're excited about the program. Now, we originally started out just to monitor water quality and the effects of farming practices on water quality. But we moved into also, our farmers said, look, if you're going to look at water quality, we've got to look at water use in terms of irrigation and water use efficiency, because we want to protect our groundwater. It's very important to us to be able to have water to irrigate our crops, but we have to be more efficient. We also, with the help of Bill Robertson and Matt Fryer, have started looking at soil health and how that affects water relationships and soil health building practices. And so you're going to hear from Steve Stevens some of the practices that he has done on his farm. And then later in our second session, you're going to hear more about some of the results that we found and some of the things that we're doing on farm. And so we've been excited about this program, looking at the irrigation, the soil health, and Bill Robertson's also looking at the sustainability. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Matt, and I'm hoping that you guys have a great day watching our program and learn a lot.
Thanks, Mike. And next we have Dr. Mark Cochran with the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. He's our Vice President, and he's live right now in Fayetteville at the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture Don Tyson building. So, Mark?
Good morning. I'm delighted to be here today. I'm always proud to talk about the programs in the Division of Agriculture, but I'm particularly proud of the Discovery Farm program. The Division of Agriculture is part of the land-grant university system, and we administer the research and extension programs. One of the reasons why I'm so proud of the Discovery Program is because it epitomizes so many of the principles of the land-grant university system. We are dedicated to providing science-based solutions to the relevant and the critical problems of the state, the region, and the nation. The Discovery Farm program is particularly adept at connecting our basic science, our applied science, our extension, and our outreach to the end users off of it. This is a program that as we extend the research discoveries and expertise that we have, they need to be both adopted and adapted at the local area and tailored to individual programs. The Discovery Farm has particular strengths in this area. Within the Division of Agriculture, we operate within 5 broad areas: agricultural production and processing, the efficiencies that are important to the global competitiveness of that, our responsibilities in natural resource management and environmental stewardship, the supply chain. We have gravitated from just being focused on providing a safe and nutritious and affordable food supply to focusing in on the method of production that is so important to some of the decisions that our consumers and buyers are making. In addition, we have programs that are looking at our families and our youth, and our programs that are associated with economic and community development of our rural communities. The Discovery Farm is particularly linked the first 2 objectives in terms of our efficiency in agricultural production with our environmental stewardship responsibilities. But as we move into these decisions that our consumers and buyers are making for our food and fiber products, they're very interested in the method of production and legitimizing the claims for sustainability. And the Discovery Farm program assists that tremendously. Through our 4-H program, we have opportunities for our youth to be engaged in looking at the science that's so important for agriculture and our rural communities here. And finally, there's a strong connection between Arkansas agriculture and our rural communities for their economic and community development off of it. The Discovery Farm program provides information in 3 basic areas that are extremely important. First is the obvious one with the connection with our farmers. This is the development of the conservation practices that will be both profitable and sustainable. What the Discovery Farm program does that is very unique and needs to be replicated is that we have this connection with our farmers. That helps our scientists develop the best practices, and oftentimes I hear our scientists saying that they learn as much from the farmers as they tailor it for their particular farm operations as they may from us. In addition to that, they're very essential in our communication. That farmer-to-farmer communication adds a degree of traction, some credibility that we may not have in our extension programs when we're talking about our research expertise off of it. The third area is back to the consumers and the buyers. There's a lot of information that is being demanded about the method of production. The Discovery Farms helps us to legitimize those sustainability claims and put some real science to the decisions that should be made by both as we look in terms of those supply chains for our food and fiber. The final area is our government officials, the decision makers at the national, the state, and the local areas as they develop government programs and regulation need solid science about the stewardship of our agricultural practices. The other thing that I really appreciate about the Discovery Farms is the partnership. We have a long list of partners that we have used throughout the program from the very origins when we made a trip up to Wisconsin to see how they were running their Discovery Farms. The Farm Bureau was very instrumental in helping us get started. A special call out to the NRCS and to Mike Sullivan, the state conservationist, because we've been very connected to their programs and they've been very generous in helping us with support the financial costs of this. But it goes broader than that. We have the Arkansas Association of the Conservation Districts that are a key component into this. We have NGOs like the Walton Family Foundation that provide generous support for it. Our farmers are investing in the program through their checkoff dollars. So this is really a community effort to try to tell the story of agriculture, to develop those conservation practices that will really meet our goals for profitability and for our environmental stewardship. So once again, I'm very proud of our Discovery Farms. I'm glad that you're here, and we really appreciate all the effort that goes into it.
Thanks, Dr. Cochran. Next, also live from the Don Tyson Center in Fayetteville, we have Dr. Andrew Sharpley. Dr. Sharpley is a researcher with the University of Arkansas Crop Soil Environmental Science Department, and he's going to talk to us more about the Arkansas Discovery Program and his role in that. So Dr. Andrew Sharpley.
I'm Andrew Sharpley, and I work with the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture up in Fayetteville on the campus up here. And I conduct research on water quality and also looking at the effectiveness of conservation measures that you'll see today and how effective they are in mitigating water quality. As you've heard from Mike and Dr. Cochran, the Discovery Farm is really about helping farmers address water quality issues. And then in the region we are in here, in the Mississippi River Basin, you'll see from this map that it covers almost half of the US. And it's actually the third largest watershed in the world. So there's a lot of people that live in that, and there's a lot of sources of nutrients that can get into the Mississippi River that eventually flow into the Gulf of Mexico. And so one of the reasons that we have developed the Discovery Program here in Arkansas was the fact of where do those nutrients come from? And EPA and USGS decided to use a model some years ago to try and prioritize watersheds within the Mississippi Basin to see where it would be best to put money for conservation practices. Well, what the model did was show that there's about 3 or 4 watersheds in Arkansas that contributed in the top 40% of nutrients to the Mississippi River. And actually, it also showed that Arkansas was the 4th largest contributor of nutrients to the Gulf of Mexico. We didn't believe that as researchers from what we've been seeing. And certainly the farmers didn't agree with that, and they wanted some more fact-based information to support that decision. So out of the model came, as I say, some funding from NRCS at a national level to help implement conservation practices in Arkansas. And they've greatly benefited from some of the conservation measures that have been put in place. But also, if you look at the Farm Bill and the development of that over the years, Congress has come back and said, we need to see evidence that the money invested in these conservation practices are actually working and actually decreasing nutrient runoff. And so the Discovery Farm fits greatly into that niche there, where we are working on what we call real private farms with farmers, helping them assess their practices. And you'll hear more about today about Steve Stevens and his farm and why he was involved in it. But up here in Northwest Arkansas, where I am, we have also poultry operations and some litigation that's still ongoing between Oklahoma and some of the integrators here and municipalities in Northwest Arkansas. But again, it's the same as it is with the Gulf of Mexico and the dead zone, which is created, that there tends to be a emphasis or finger pointing pretty quickly at agriculture because it's a vague, it's a diffusive, it's the losses, you can't see them, they don't come out of a pipe. And so there's a perception, rightly or wrongly, that agriculture is a major source of a lot of these nutrients that are either flowing from Arkansas into Oklahoma or from Arkansas down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. And when those nutrients get into the Gulf of Mexico, it's a bit like fertilizing your lawn or a pasture or crops to make them grow. When those nutrients get into the Gulf, they make algae grow. And when that algae dies, it decomposes, it takes up oxygen. And basically it suffocates the fish, and hence you get the term a dead zone where very little aquatic life can survive. And so it's important. And the farmers came to us, as you've heard, to try and develop this program and look at some of the measures that we're doing. So what we've done, we've implemented monitoring devices to see how much nutrients are coming off. If there is a concern with nutrient runoff off some farms, and if there isn't, that's certainly a good information to have. but it does provide the farmers with the information to be able to support what they're doing and the practices that they are implementing and how they may be benefiting water quality. And more from a personal side, it has really been a benefit to me to be connected through this program to the farmers and to everyday pressures. And it's really benefited my research and others that are involved in this program, their research, to be grounded in this reality of the day-to-day pressures and constraints that face farmers. And we, it's really helped the impact of our research that's come out of this. And so, having said that, we did get some funds to support the program, like we've already heard. And now we've got, as you can see here on this picture here, we've got now 12, 13 farms that vary across the state of Arkansas. So it's a very diverse program. We've got livestock operations, poultry, beef. We've got a peach orchard now that we're looking at water conservation. And then we've got the row crop farming, soybean, rice, corn in eastern Arkansas, which Mike mainly supervises. And so you can see here that the breadth of information that we've got. Today, we're going to focus on the one farm down in the southeast part of Arkansas, Steve Stevens. And with that, I appreciate it, and I'll hand it back to Matt.
Thank you, Dr. Sharpley. Really appreciate your time and speaking with us today. And right now, I'd like to turn it back over to Dr. Mike Daniels, and he's going to talk to us more about the partnerships that are involved in the Discovery Program. So, Mike?
Matt, thank you. It is my honor and privilege to be able to introduce our partners. There's two things that really stand out about Discovery Farms. A lot of people think it's just data collection, but really there's two other things that make it a very powerful program. One is that we have a team of partners that work together with a common goal of assisting that farmer. And so we put a team together of people from different agencies that work together. NRCS provides technical assistance, funding assistance. Arkansas Association of Conservation Districts, they help us organize and promote educational events. But the second thing that really helps us is the role of the farmer. Discovery Farms is a way of providing or getting the farmer to be a part of the solution process to address these issues. A lot of times we talk about these issues, but we don't involve the farmer. This program involves the farmer, and what we have found is our farmers usually come up with a better solution for their farm than we can. We assist them, but it's farmer-led from the standpoint that they know their capabilities, they know their land, they know what they have to do to remain profitable in putting in these practices. And that's why you're going to hear in the next few minutes from our partners and from our farmer, Steve Stevens. They are an integral part of this program. But again, remember, the key is the fact that we involve the farmer in the solution process. We don't just associate with the farmer. We want that farmer to be a part of our team. With that, I'll turn it back over to Matt.
Thanks, Dr. Daniels. And next up, we're going to hear from Mike Sullivan. He works for USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service, and he's going to tell us a little bit about their role in the Discovery Farm program and the vital role that they play. So, Mike?
My name is Mike Sullivan. I'm State Conservationist for NRCS in Arkansas. NRCS is pleased to be a partner in the Discovery Farms effort that includes work on Mr. Stevens' farm. At NRCS, we provide technical and financial assistance to help producers maintain or improve their agricultural productivity while protecting the environment and addressing natural resource concerns. We do this by implementing any number of some 170 or so conservation practices that are science-based, using a systematic conservation planning approach, and then addressing priorities identified by local farmers working with and through local conservation districts. I mentioned that the practices are science-based. We have book information that tells how the practices should operate, but what's even better is when we get hard data and science in our local soils, our local counties, that proves that these practices are doing what they say they should do. And here, that's what the Discovery Farms help us with. It's been a real need in the state for some time, and we're very fortunate to have the leadership from the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture and researchers such as Dr. Mike Daniels and Dr. Andrew Sharpley and the rest of the Arkansas Water Quality Monitoring Network that are willing to listen to producers, do research on the priority practices the producers want to have addressed, and conduct this monitoring that's needed to get the results and effects of conservation practices. I think that's one of the real key benefits, is that we're seeing producers are getting real-time feedback on the effectiveness of their operations, and then they can adjust their operations accordingly. This is very different than how research used to be handled, where it might be years before you would get results that could be implemented on the ground. NRCS back in about 2010 began working and promoting work at a large landscape scale, such as the Mississippi River Basin, to address problems such as water quality. In implementing these initiatives, they made funding available above and beyond what we normally have for our ongoing programs to accelerate conservation activities to address these particular problems. We're very fortunate when we began to implement MRBI that it was about the same time the Discovery Farms Network was being set up. And so those two came together, and through MRBI, we've now had more than $160 million in financial assistance for conservation practices such as nutrient management, irrigation-related practices, cover crops, and other similar practices to address water quality and water management concerns. Part of MRBI also requires that we do some monitoring to document the actual effectiveness in achieving the objectives of those projects. That's again where Discovery Farms has come in and been very handy. As it was being stood up, there was already a partnership that was put together. We were able to combine some funding available through MRBI in our contracts to help accelerate the Discovery Farms program, and they just fit together hand in hand. So what we see is an actual research project going on where we're implementing practices to benefit producers for production's sake at the same time. So we really ramped up and speeded up the research project process to get the information that's needed. The data that we're finding from the edge of field monitoring through the Discovery Farms and in our MRBI projects is showing pretty much what we thought it would, and maybe even better, that producers are good stewards of the land. They're out there wanting to do the right thing. They're keeping the nutrients on their land to the extent they can. They're trying new practices that are most efficient in doing just that, keeping sediment on the land, and then also improving their water management practices. Once a producer completes a conservation plan, they are then eligible for NRCS financial assistance. They have to compete for that, so it's not automatically available. And our demand across the state is much higher than the funds and resources than we have available. We've worked really hard through projects like MRBI and others to make as much funding available as possible. And generally over the last several years, we've been in the top 1 or 2 in the country in terms of assistance available to producers to help them implement conservation. We also provide funding for activities to support edge of field monitoring. So through these MRBI contracts, there is money that can be available for producers who are interested in having researchers work directly with them to conduct the monitoring, do the testing, which would include water quality testing, testing on water management and soil health, to document the effectiveness of the practices. We have some 25 edge of field contracts that we've implemented in Arkansas. That's more than any other state in the country, and currently 10 of 15 of our active contracts are affiliated with the Discovery Farms program. I think Mr. Stevens has a couple that he's working on, one dealing with surge irrigation, dealing with nutrient and sediment losses, and the other one with cover crops. We have a great conservation partnership in Arkansas, and I really appreciate the work from the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture. Due to their interest in working hand in hand with producers and getting the word out on the great work that's going with Discovery Farms, we've been able to enter into an agreement to provide funds to do just that. This is just one example of many of the agreements we've entered into with the Division of Agriculture and many of our other partners around the state. So in conclusion, I think what we're finding is that partners are coming together, supporting agricultural producers, helping to document and ensure that they're doing the right things. And that's exactly what we're finding. Our agricultural producers really are good stewards of the land. They are our true environmentalists protecting our natural resources. If you'd like more information, the best thing to do from an NRCS standpoint would be get with our local field office, talk with your district conservationist, see about getting a conservation plan, and then becoming eligible for financial assistance, or even checking into the potential of some edge of field monitoring. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. We're extremely grateful for the funding provided to us by USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service, and so we really thank you for your time and speaking with us today. So next up we have Debbie Moreland. She's a program administrator with the Arkansas Association of Conservation Districts, and she's going to talk to us more about water conservation educational efforts in the state. So Debbie?
When Dr. Andrew Sharpley and Dr. Mike Daniels with the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture first came to the Arkansas Association of Conservation Districts to talk about the Arkansas Discovery Farms, we were extremely pleased and excited to hear of this new and innovative way of looking at how we can serve our customers and our clients. And that's what they are. They are our clients and our customers, and we need to always remember that. And this provided all of our local, state, and federal agencies to partner together to say, how can we best meet the needs of our producers? And the thing, I think one of the primary things that I liked about the program was the fact that when you had your local conservation district, you had your county agent, you had your NRCS staff, and you had everybody go to that farmer and you say, okay, tell us what your goals are. Tell us what you hope to achieve on your particular farm. And then with that, we collectively work together to say, okay, how can we provide the technical assistance? How can we provide the financially incentive-based conservation programs? How can we help you with all of your irrigation needs? There's so many different things that our farmers are being faced with today that they really need that cooperative partnership to help them address these things. There's so many variables they simply cannot address, such as the weather, the markets, and all the other things. So everything that we can do collectively, to me, that is what the goals we should have for every farm, for every ranch, and for every operation that we have in the state of Arkansas. And the benefits of this particular program have been numerous. We have been able to see they can see how they can improve their irrigation needs so that we can reduce our water usage, which is a better impact on our declining aquifers. They've been able to say how they can reduce their fertilization cost. They have been able to see how they can address their weed problems, such as the Palmer amaranth and the pigweed. And so that the list goes on and on and on of the benefits that have come out of this particular program of things that we have not expected. Now, for this program to truly be successful, it takes more than just the partnership. It takes farmers that are willing to be innovative, that they're willing to say, I'm willing to step out here, I'm willing to trust you because of our relationship, because of that relationship that we built over the years, that I'm willing to listen to you and I'm willing to give you part of my operation to see how I can improve or enhance my soil health, how I can improve my irrigation management, how I can address all the needs that I have on my farm. And that is a whole lot of it, is you've got to have a farmer that is willing to step up. People like Steve Stevens, Terry Dabbs, Andrew Wargo. It took a whole list of different farmers that were willing to take that risk. And today we're focusing on Steve Stevens, and he has done an incredible job of not only of trying to work with us, but then also providing us with some of the information that we needed to show that we are in fact good stewards, and the fact that they are reducing their nutrient management, the fact that their nutrients that are running off of their land. And so we're extremely proud of this program. We're extremely pleased to be part of it. We thank the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture for this opportunity to partner. We thank the Natural Resource Conservation Service for providing those financial incentives to help farmers implement these conservation practices. And we thank our local conservation districts that continue to lead in locally led voluntary incentive-based conservation programs. And finally, the Discovery Farms, they continue to help us provide the cheapest, the safest, and the most abundant food supply in the world, and we're deeply grateful to this program and to the farmers like Steve Stevens.
Thanks, Debbie. We really appreciate your time and speaking with us today. And so next up we have Steve Stevens. He's an Arkansas Discovery farmer and a great advocate of the program. And, you know, I've heard his story several times, and it never gets old, and I always thoroughly enjoy it. And he's a great storyteller, and so I think you'll enjoy his story too. So next up we'll have Steve. Steve?
Good morning. I'm Steve Stevens. My philosophy in farming started as a young man of about 25. My dad said, Steve, the one thing that you need to do is leave the land in better shape than you found it. In his generation, it was clearing up the trees, picking up the chunks, trying to level where water would run from one end to the other, eventually get into irrigation, and which he started irrigation in 1947. But what has really changed the landscape of things, we had a severe drought in 1980, and the wells more than doubled. They tripled in our part of the world in the Delta, and we started drawing down our water table. And this really has become a problem as we've gone further. We have got to find a way to conserve water so that we have water and good soils for my children and grandchildren. And this is the reason I'm here before you today. I think my job is to learn, try to do better, and then maybe help educate other growers so that we can do this industry wide where it really means something. How did I become a discovery farmer? Well, I didn't ask for it. In fact, I was very reluctant. I was in southeast Arkansas. My water went into the Mississippi River. I had the perfect location. There wasn't one in Arkansas or the Mid-South. I was reluctant because I was afraid of what they might find. I was afraid that when they started monitoring phosphorus and nitrogen, I might have a problem. EPA might come knocking on my door. I was convinced by Debbie Moreland with NRCS, Steve, if you have a problem, we'll help you fix it. Well, that was good enough for me. I said, yes, we'll do it. So in 2011, they started putting in the equipment so that we could monitor nitrogen and phosphorus. Whenever water is running off the fields, every few minutes a sample is pulled and collected, goes to a lab to be tested. The other thing, we had rain gauges at the upper end of the field. We had water meters so that we were able to record all of our irrigation water. Everything that ran out of the field was recorded in gallons as well. And this was kind of the start. The next thing that was added was a soil moisture probes. This was probably the most important thing of the whole system, was the soil moisture probes, because we learned something that we really didn't know or didn't understand. We didn't have any soil health. The water always ran down a little narrow spot in the middles, and it didn't absorb across the rows. We had run through 3 irrigation cycles, and our cotton irrigation specialist, Chris Henry, called up and said, Steve, when are you going to start watering? As these probes were fixed to work through the cell system, and you were able to get to them through an iPad or an iPhone. I said, Chris, we've watered 3 times. He says, no, you hadn't. Well, Chris came from Nebraska, where the water really flowed through the soils well, and they didn't in our part of the world. So that began the journey of what do we do about it. Bill Robertson, our cotton specialist, first said, well, we can talk about deep tillage. And I said, no, we've done that. It's short term. If you get a rainy spring, you can't get the crop in, a rainy fall, you can't get it out. Let's look for something else. So then he came up with the idea of cover crop, cereal rye. This became the basis of what has really made our farm, our discovery farm, successful. So money was appropriated through our Arkansas Cotton State Support coming from Cotton Incorporated so that Bill could become a partner and use the instruments that was supplied through the other organizations and really do a lot more work. How deep do the roots go? How much soil are we using? What he found, we were only farming 6 inches of the soil, and we were only putting water in a small amount of the ground. The roots had to go to the water. Behind the cereal rye, he found that we were now farming 15 to 18 inches of soil. Earthworms came back the first year, and when we applied water, it went all the way across the row, middle and all, just like a clay soil or a soil with good soil structure. This meant that we were now getting twice as much rainfall whenever we had rain events. We could go much longer between water events, and we had a lot more nutrient capacity that the plant could get to, which became very important in the whole scheme of things. Another thing that we had already incorporated, it was funny, Mike Daniels came down and he said, "Steve, I'd like for you to try this program called Faucet." And I said, "Mike, we can't do that," because in 2008, Phil Tacker from the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture had introduced me to that in a program in Little Rock. He said, "Steve, if it takes 24 hours to get a set out, we can do it in 15 with this computer program." And I looked at him and I said, "You're telling me that a computer will get these sets out 40% faster?" "Yeah, that's right." Well, I had been observing fields, and we'd get 2/3 of them out, and the other third was halfway up in the field, and I'd almost cried seeing that water running out the bottom of the field waiting on that last third. So I told Phil, "Okay, let's try it." And he helped me set up 6 fields. By the end of the 4th field, I saw what it was doing for us, and it was doing exactly what he said, 24 hours to 15. So we set up 450 fields, or sets, irrigation sets, that first year using Faucet. I saved $100,000 in direct cost of fuel, not counting reducing wear and tear on the pumps by 40%, and we used 40% less groundwater. The most important thing of the whole deal, we used 40% less groundwater. The irrigation efficiency, as Bill was noting, taking the numbers and all that came through the meters, became 85 to 92%. Bill had made the comment, "I never thought we'd break 90% on furrow irrigation," but we did it. The next thing we asked for, in fact, we had started asking for that year. We don't want numbers at the end of the year. We pushed them. We said we want real-time numbers. Within 2 days of an event, we want numbers back. Let's see if we can get better. Let's see what we can do better. For fertilization, one of the things that we were doing was applying fertilizer after stand establishment, and only applying what the crops needed according to university test of potential yield. And we found that our fertility levels were very, very low, less than 3 and 5% in most cases. Another test we did was liquid uran against urea. Is there a difference between applying the two as far as runoff? Yes, there was. There was a significant difference of knifing in liquid urea compared to the urea, which became important to the epoxy. So we were trying to fine tune and keep getting better and better. Cover crops has just made all the difference in the world. Sustainability is the name of the game today. Our consumers, our retailers are trying to buy products for the consumers that they want, and we have to be sustainable in our production. Cover crops is probably the biggest one thing that a grower can do to be sustainable in agriculture. The next thing is, can you do this and be profitable? The thought was, it's going to cost more money. The university ran 3 years of studies where they asked for every movement that we made on the farm, everything, all the inputs. Every nickel that was spent was accounted for. Went through the economist, and we discovered that we were growing cotton 5 cents a pound cheaper under a no-till cover crop system compared to farmer standard. In today's economy, this is huge. It may mean the difference of staying in business and not.
Thanks, Steve. Next up, we'll have Mr. Andrew Wargo III, and he is the board chairman of the Deshay County Conservation District. And he's really played a crucial role. Him and the local board has played a crucial role in getting funding for these Arkansas Discovery Farms. And so if it wasn't for them, we may not have an Arkansas Discovery Farm there in Deshay County. And so I'd like to turn it over to Andrew.
Good morning. Glad to be here with you today. I don't know how much I can add to what's already been said, but it's been a most enjoyable ride to be a part of this. Prior to the implementation of the Discovery Farm was an item known by the acronym MRBI, which is Mississippi River Basin Improvement Initiative, and that came along at about '08. We were able to work through the Arkansas Association and our county and achieve an MRBI program in central Deshay County. This allowed us to replace a lot of inefficient flumes with underground irrigation, which did away with weed and disease problems. Also put a lot of funding in on a cost share basis. We put in about 100 miles of underground line and about 500 culverts, which greatly reduced erosion. And following this and the synergism it created, the concept of the Discovery Farm came along. At that time, I was serving as an officer in the state association and was able to see what the potential was there. And when the map first came out, it was glaring that there was not a Discovery Farm in southeast Arkansas, particularly on row crop. Terry's farm here was as far south as it went. So we were able to use some of the funding made available through the MRBI and a grant to work toward getting a Discovery Farm there. The challenge was finding a cooperator. The most politely I can put it is Steve wasn't a willing cooperator to begin with. He was very reluctant, as he indicated a while ago. But after talking with Steve and Debbie talking with Steve, he agreed to buy into the program, and the rest has been history. And this is just another example of what locally led conservation does when everyone pulls in the same direction. We continue to see more and more benefits. The data that's being created, Bill Roberts has done a tremendous job of assimilating this and getting regional and somewhat more broadly national publication on some of this data. And it has shown that the contributions that agriculture is making to the hypoxia zone are not necessarily nearly as great as they were considered to be. The contributors are somewhere in the agro-industrial complex, but not just agriculture. The runoff from the cities, the runoff from the industrial plants is just much greater than that of the farm programs. And the cover crop item and its fit into the soil health picture are showing just tremendous problems for us to be able to conserve irrigation water, which helps to reduce the salinity problem, helps us to further reduce the amount of groundwater drawdown, helps to further diminish the nutrient runoff because you're not having to pump so much water on the top end, as Steve indicated, about 40% less to get the water to the lower end, and what you do pump, everything's staying in the field. So it's great to be a part of this, but the key is locally led conservation and everybody pulling in the same direction.
Thank you, Mr. Wargo. I really appreciate your efforts and the local district's efforts in securing funding for the Discovery Farm on Steve Stevens. And so, next thing I want to mention is that one of the benefits of a virtual field day is that you have the ability to send in live questions. We're going to have a panel up here soon to answer your questions. So just use the chat option on your screen and type in any questions you may have, and we'll get those fielded here shortly. But next up, I'd like to have Terry Dabbs. His farm is where we're actually located right now, near Stuttgart. He was gracious enough to let us use his farm as a host site for this virtual field day when we found out that Steve Stevens Farms in Rower didn't have Wi-Fi strong enough to support the virtual field day. And so Terry Dabbs is the chairman of the stakeholder committee for the Arkansas Discovery Farm program, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about his role in that. So Terry?
Good morning. Well, I may be a little late since y'all have been here 2 days, but I want to welcome everybody to our farm here. And I've been involved with the Discovery Farm program since the very beginning. Was one of the first Discovery Farm in the state when we first got the program started. And I think this is a very good program. I'm very supportive of it. As you heard Andrew say just a minute ago, the main reason I got involved was to try to help prove some of the things that what agriculture is actually doing. And I know agriculture gets blamed for a lot of things, and I saw this as a good opportunity for us to get some good data and to try to see exactly what agriculture is doing. So once again, welcome, and I want to thank the University of Arkansas for the opportunity to work with them. And they're doing a great job in administering this program, and so thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Terry. We greatly appreciate your time and your hospitality and letting us use your farm. And we'd just like to thank our funders, USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service, for funding the Discovery Farms and this virtual field days as well. And we'd like to thank the whole crew that's behind the scenes here working to put this production on. It's quite extensive and involved, and so they work hard and they're sweating hard, and so we just want to thank them. And we really want to thank all of our speakers that taking time out of their day to come speak to us and give us their insight on the program. And so right now we'd like to field any questions that you may have, so continue to send those in, and we'll go to our panelists. So one of the questions we have is, you know, it was mentioned that Discovery Farms are not just in Arkansas, but across the country. So how many Discovery Farms are there in the country?
Matt, there are several programs in different states. It started in Wisconsin, it spread to Minnesota, North Dakota, and now Arkansas. Mississippi State has a similar program that they call REACH. There has been some of this type of work being done out in Oregon, and Illinois and Iowa, their soybean boards are interested in getting Discovery Farms going. American Farm Bureau has some interest in it too, and I'd like for Terry to, if he could, to address that.
Well, I guess 2 years ago, either 2 or 3 years ago, Mike and I went to Washington, D.C. on a Farm Bureau trip, and they had a lot of interest in the program at that time. And they invited us over to the Senate Ag Committee's staff meeting where we got to give a presentation about Discovery Farm program in Arkansas and what we saw the benefits of it. So they're very interested in it.
Yeah, and we also had interest not only in Discovery Farm programs across the country, but some federal agencies have been interested, like EPA. In fact, Steve Stevens and Terry both had a chance to talk to the former director of EPA and share some of their data. Steve, would you like to comment about that?
Yes, we had some really good numbers to show EPA, and we're very concerned about fertilizer being limited, or some federal agency telling us that you can only apply this much. And we were thrilled to show the data that we can apply what the crop is using and still be very efficient with our fertilization program and have very, very low runoff numbers.
Thanks, Steve. You know, what else? We know what we're finding here in Arkansas as far as runoff data and numbers and nutrients. So how does that compare to other states in the U.S.?
We're a little bit unique because a lot of the other programs right now are on large dairy farms, and they look at the manure applied to cornfields that they use for silage. And, you know, in the Midwest, Wisconsin, Minnesota, they have a similar problem that we do. Our soils are wet. Their soils are wet. We drain ours by surface drainage. We shape the landform so that we can get drainage. We do a lot of conservation land leveling here. Up there, they don't have that opportunity. It would be too costly, greater slopes. So they tile drain. They install tiles below the surface. One of the problems that they've had in putting manure on corn in those systems and tile draining them is the nitrates move with water. They're soluble in water. and they don't usually get taken up by the soil. So the nitrates are moving down to the tile drains, and what they have found is that they are getting some nitrates at higher levels than expected coming out of that tile drain. And what they're trying to do is find ways to treat that discharge water from the tile drains. They have things called bioreactors that they'll send the water through that's designed to hold on to that nitrogen. They're also using constructed wetlands where those tile drains. So they're also looking at solutions on those discovery farms for things like that. We don't have that problem in our soils. All of ours is going to be pretty much surface runoff, and like we've all said, the numbers have been low relative to what we're putting on in terms of the amount of nutrients that we're losing. We're above 95% efficient on most of our discovery farms, and that is really a tremendous attribute to a lot of things, our management, but also our soils, but also the fact that we have a strong soil testing program, and we're trying to match the right amount of fertilizer to the crop. It's not so much how much fertilizer we put out, it's how well we match it to what the crop needs are.
That's good. You know, there were some slides showing all the different sites in the state for discovery farms where those measurements are being taken. It seemed to be quite a few. How does that compare to the rest of the states in the U.S.? Do they have that many sites? Is the funding there, I mean, kind of equal to Arkansas?
Well, we originally started out with 4 farms, and Evan Teague of Farm Bureau challenged us to get up to 12, and we laughed and said we'll never be able to do that. But the way this program has evolved with the strength of our partnerships, with the dedication of these gentlemen, Terry, Andrew, Debbie Moreland, Steve Stevens, promoting our program, we have been able to secure funding to go up to 12 farms. Now, it puts a strain on us at times, but we are looking at a lot of different systems. Most states try to do 5 to 6 at a time. We've been able to get up 12, but our agriculture is so much more diverse than just the dairy farms and the corn and soybean rotations. So we felt like we had to do more if we were going to represent all farmers in the state.
Sure. So that's kind of a testament to local conservation, right, and their efforts.
It absolutely is. As you heard from Andrew Wargo, he played a key role in securing the funding through locally led conservation. He knew what the issues were. This is the power of locally led conservation. These farmers that serve on these boards, they know what their local issues are, and they know how to go work with NRCS to bring in grant money. The grant money's helped us fund farms in that area to put conservation practices in. It's helped Steve with conservation practices. It's helped us monitor. The program will provide financial assistance to help us monitor that. So we've been able to do a lot more because we've been so willing to partner, and we've had such great partners. This is not just a Division of Agriculture program. This is a program for all agriculture and all of our partners. But it just, and I will tell you, these guys push us. I'll give you an example. I was giving runoff data to Steve at the end of the year, and he said, "Why do you wait till the end of the year to give me this data? Can't you give it to me the next day?" And I said, "Well, we can." He said, "Well, I need it. I need to know what my effective irrigation, effective rainfall." So we came up with a way. Bill Robertson helped us with this. I think Pearl was here at that time helping us with this. We put a spreadsheet together. They can go down to the sampler, find out how much runoff they got. They can plug that in. And we can tell them, okay, you put 3 inches of water on, but a ½ inch drained off, so you got 2.5 inches of effective irrigation. But where it's really powerful is all farmers know when they get a rainfall, the gauge may say 3 inches. They know they have runoff. They don't really know what that effective rainfall was. And now we're able to give that to them so they can adjust accordingly.
That's good.
That's how they pushed us. That's the solution they thought of, not us.
This is where cover crops really play a key role, because they greatly increase the absorptive capacity of the soil. Rather than 3 inches on, 2.5 running off, you get 3 inches on and maybe a half running off.
Right. That's good. Well, I don't see any more questions on here. I'd just like to, again, thank USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service for funding this virtual field day and the discovery farms. And so, thank all of our speakers. Thank y'all so much for taking your time out to be with us today and standing out in the heat. It's not easy, and so we really appreciate it. And we thank everybody else behind the scenes. And we also like to invite you to come to our next virtual field day in about an hour. It's starting at 11. So you need to register for that and join us. And we're going to go into more depth on soil health, cover crops, you've heard those terms. We're going to go into more depth on those and what we're seeing in the field in the Discovery Farm program and the working nuts and bolts of the Discovery Farm program. So join us, and if you can't join us, have a great day.